Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. It's almost game day again. We're nearly there. Sunday we have the chance to officially become champions of Scotland yet again. Say it loud, say it proud. But today we're going to take a look at the privileges champions get, and that is Champions League football, because a very exciting picture is starting to come right in front of our eyes as to what we could see in the group stages next season. It's also season ticket renewal day. So if you're skint like me, I'm sure you're happy to hear that. Welcome back. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. It would be much appreciated. Yeah, we're going to talk about the Champions League today, as we've not had the chance to speak about the Champions League since November. You know, since we got knocked out of said competition. It's been a kind of weird second half of the year because we've had no European football whatsoever, and I must say, for as much as we seem to struggle with European football, I always look forward to it and I always enjoy being a part of it. It's probably one of the most exciting parts of our season, and you know, getting away to these trips over mainland Europe as well are always fun for everybody who can manage to get over. So I'm looking forward to the Champions League again next season. And we know that we're going to be in the competition. But the landscape of said competition is looking a little bit different from usual, because what a year of football we've had. There's been shocks all over Europe this season. Where we stand right now isn't obviously finished. There is still games to be played in every domestic league. Things will change. The picture will go through slight sort of edits as we get from now until the end of the season. But where we stand right now is all very exciting. In Italy, we've been watching as Napoli run riot in Serie A and look to make themselves champions of Italy for the first time since God knows when. And then you look down in England, where Arsenal have tried their best and could still become champions of England, which would throw a spanner to the works of the usual top two we've seen of recent years. And you look at a country like Holland as well. Ajax, who've been so dominant in recent times, this year look as though they'll be dethroned by the great Feyenoord. It's been a fantastic year for football all over Europe, and it means that next year's Champions League is going to be met with a few surprises and a group stage that could be favourable for Celtic. Right, I know there's probably Rangers fans watching this video, and I know what's going to be said in the top comments. They've not won a knockout tie since 2000. I don't care, right? We move forward. We look forwards with this football club. That's the reason we're doing so good. Because we keep looking to the future and we keep getting better. We don't blab on about 55 league titles, which is keeping us in the past. We are doing good, and that's what matters. And what the next step of doing good is for this Celtic side and Ange Postecoglou is improving in European football. And obviously there's a long way to go before we get into the depth of that and we talk about that in you know, some great detail. But I really do believe, after what we've seen this season, both domestically and in the Champions League group stages last year, I think that we are a team that's improving, and we've got something to offer next year in Champions League football. So, who are the people that we could face? Who are the teams that we might see in the Champions League group stage next season? So this is how it currently stands in the Champions League group stages if things stay the same across Europe's top divisions. A very interesting set of teams set to be in the elite group stages of the Champions League. Now, disclaimer, these things can change, teams might change, and obviously there's European qualifiers which sides will have to go through, including Rangers, who will need to play in qualifiers to get to the Champions League. So you will see them on screen in this graphic, but there is no guarantee that Rangers will actually be there. If they are there, they will be in pot 3 above us in pot 4. It's just how things work. But there's no guarantee, just for example, Rangers will be there. But as it currently stands, this is what we're looking at for next season. A big shout out to Swiss Football Data. You can go follow them on Twitter, who do a very good job at keeping up with the coefficient and have this website that can allow you to look basically daily at the changes as to what can happen in European football. You can check for basically all teams. But this is a very interesting set of sides that has been put ahead of us here, because you look in pot 1 and it's just, you know, it's a little bit different with the likes of Barcelona being back at the top of Spanish football, Napoli being the basically reigning champions at this point of Italian football, And then, it's undecided yet in Germany. It could be Dortmund who are in pot 1 for all we know. And then the likes of Feyenoord in there. There's a really good set of teams in there. Now, Celtic aren't expected to beat any of these sides, not by a long shot. But I think that if you just look at these sides, compared to maybe years gone by, you're looking at a set of teams that could be a little easier on the eye when it comes to group stage draw time. I think it's interesting as you obviously look down the pots and see some of the sides that you're not used to seeing. Newcastle. Celtic won't be able to come up against Newcastle as we'll both be in pot 4, but they are there. How good would it be if we could have got an away game against Newcastle? That would have been fantastic. Think how many Celtic fans who would have took that 2-hour drive over the border to go and to face the likes of Newcastle. But Arsenal, for example, going back down to England, they're back. They could be a pot 1 or 2 side, most likely pot 2. But you fancy your chances against Arsenal. For as good as they've been this season, Celtic have always had cracking games against the English sides in the Champions League. And honestly, I just think it's a team that we could bring a really good game of football to. And I would welcome having Arsenal drawn against us in pot 2. Another one where I think plenty of Celtic fans would make the drive down to London for the away leg. It just seems very, very exciting. And it just makes you think, the teams that are changing in this competition this year, we're seeing the likes of Newcastle and Arsenal come back to the Champions League. Some big boys are dropping out potentially into the Europa League, which in years gone by have been teams that you don't want to face in this competition whatsoever. You don't want to face these sides in the Champions League. You look at the potential Europa League sides right now, which could be interesting for Rangers fans to look at if they end up down there. Liverpool, they're in pot 1. Ajax, pot 1 as well. Leipzig, who Celtic couldn't beat this year, back in there. Tottenham Hotspur, who've been a Champions League regular the last few years, down there. AC Milan, Sporting Lisbon, Champions League sides who are no longer predicted at this moment in time to be in the Champions League. These are sides that are missing out, and we're seeing a lot of fresh blood come into the Champions League, and that's good. Let Celtic get used to the Champions League football, and let all these sides that haven't played in it that much recently, let them be the new guys. Let them be the whipping boys, hopefully. As it currently stands, I want to have a wee bit of fun. Let's do a best and worst case scenario for the Champions League group stage draw, what I would like to see for Celtic next year. Pot 1, I think best case scenario, what you're looking for, Feyenoord. You would love to draw Feyenoord for so many reasons. Number 1, to get along to the Coupe. One of the best stadiums in the whole of Europe, one of the best atmospheres in the whole of Europe, and obviously a good relationship between Celtic and Feyenoord supporters. I think that would be a fantastic away trip, one that I'd be dying to do. I'd love to go over and see Rotterdam. And, Feyenoord, a team that Celtic I think could beat. So, no disrespect to them, because they deserve all the respect in the world, the potential champions of Holland this year. And a whole lot of respect for those guys, but you'd rather them than Man City, wouldn't you? I think worst case scenario from pot 1, at this moment in time, you've got to say, would be Manchester City. Probably the best team in Europe. I do not fancy Erling Haaland playing against Celtic. No matter how good I think Starfelt and Cameron Carter-Vickers is, no. I'd rather avoid. Thank you, go away. Best case from pot 2, I'm saying it and I'm sticking to it. Arsenal. I really do think it. Arsenal would be the best case scenario from pot 2. Bring them on. Worst case scenario, probably Real Madrid. Yeah, they've not had the greatest season domestically, but once again, they're into the semi-finals of the Champions League. Now, what we've got to remember is there's no guarantee Real Madrid will be down in pot 2, because if they win the Champions League, they'll go into pot 1. But if they stay in pot 2, then yeah, Real Madrid. That's decided. And best case scenario from pot 3, you're probably looking at one of those sides towards the bottom of the coefficient. Your Copenhagen's, your Red Stars, your Young Boys. I'd probably go for Young Boys and put them as the best case scenario for pot 3. I just think that it's a side that, we've seen, I think Rangers played them in recent years as well. Just one of those ones, you'd fancy them over maybe a Salzburg. But there's not really any team in pot 3 who I fear that much, to be honest. So worst case scenario, I don't know, I'd probably go Lazio. I'd probably say them. A couple of their games this season I've watched in the Serie A, and they look good. They look like a decent enough side. They were obviously a side with a bigger stature. But then again, you get that big away crowd going over there, so you'd be getting a lot of tickets. But I'll stick with them as the worst case scenario for pot 3. But you look at that, and You know, you look at all the teams available here in this competition, and I think it's making for a very exciting group stage next year. And as they say in the WWE, just remember, all cards are subject to change. We don't know if this is how it's going to finish this season. Premier League still has about, 4 match days to go, I think. Same as Germany, have got about 4. Scotland, we obviously have 5. There's still games to be played everywhere. There will be a changing picture, but I just think at this moment in time, we are in for a very exciting race to Europe. And next year, I really do fancy our chances with the way things are standing. Not to go and win the Champions League, but just to compete in it. So on that note, heading into the Champions League next year, the season ticket renewals have started today. Celtic released their campaign, their statement to get as many people back on the waiting list. No, they want people to get their season tickets first, and then they'll turn to the waiting list. But the campaign has started. Ticket prices are out on the club's website. Adults starting from £559. A steep price to pay for football. Better than another club over in the same city over the other side, right enough. But a lot of money. But we've started a new campaign this year. We're going for We're All In. You know, it's usually we never stop. This year it's We're All In. A lot of AEW being watched by the Celtic marketing team, it seems. Ange Postecoglou obviously spoke when it came to the statement as well. He gave his little bit of salesmanship to try and get as many season ticket holders back on board for next year. He said, "We're all in. We can achieve special things together. Thank you for all you've given us this year. We hope that we can count on your support at Paradise once again next season." So there you go. You've got until Wednesday the 31st of May before the deadline closes. But as usual, they'll probably extend that deadline for another week on top of that. But try and get your season ticket renewed if you can. I'm probably going to have to go and busk in the middle of Sucky Hall Street to make up the money. But yeah, season tickets are out. Champions League football is back. Oh, I'm already excited for 23-24. Bring it on. I want it now. Just get this season done and dusted. Get a treble in. Let's move on. Right, that'll do it for today. If you've enjoyed, like and subscribe. I'll see you all next time.